Welcome to Full Stack Software Engineering using ChatGPT. This is Professor Manish Narayan, founder of Innovative Institution. Hey guys, welcome to the course. So what we're going to build is a full stack application using various technologies such as Visual Studio, SQL Server, .NET 7, React, Dapper ORM, and the nice part about this course is we're going to fully automate our code and massage it using ChatGPT. All right, so the first step in this course is to create a new OpenAI ChatGPT account. So if you see the screen here, you can head over to chat.openai.com/auth/login. I'll send over the links in the course material in the resources. So you'll have all the links for you. If you head over here, if you already have an account, you can log in or you can sign up. Sign up process is pretty simple. You can just use your email address and then follow the steps, and you'll have your account ready. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to log in. All right, so I already have an account here with Innovative Institution. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. And once you log into ChatGPT, openai.com, you're going to have this console on the left where you'll see the history of all your chats. At the bottom, you'll have your account information and some preferences and settings. So it's fairly simple to use. You can go ahead and type in a message, say hello, and GPT 3.5. I'm not using the version 4 or 4.5 as I'm just using the free one. Here is 3.5. So here, for example, can you give me an example of a C# delegate? All right. So again, you can use various languages, ask GPT to generate code for you. So in this course, we're going to have GPT, set up all of our software clean architecture layers, and then massage the code where needed, and as well as have GPT generate a Postman collection for us to test our APIs and CRUD operations. So let's get started. This is the first step. You want to go ahead and create your GPT account. If you already have one, you'll go ahead and log in, and then we'll get started with the installation. All right, welcome to the next part of our course. What we're going to do here is set up and install the necessary software in order to run the full stack application. So you're going to head over to visualstudio.microsoft.com. Okay, I provided the links in the resources. Feel free to look those up. Once you head over to Visual Studio 2022 at Microsoft, you're going to go ahead and choose a version that's right for you. Again, depending on your operating system, and if you already have Visual Studio, you might have an earlier version. That's fine. For this course, we're going to be using Community 2022. It's free for individual developers. So once you download and install that, you choose again, it's up to you to choose your options and customization. Once that's installed and you open Visual Studio 2022, you'll be able to create a new project. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to create a new project, okay? And I'm going to choose an empty solution, okay? So you'll see an option for blank solution. If you don't see it on the left here, you can search for the templates here. Blank, you can just type in blank and you'll see an option for blank solution. Sorry, it's a little bit slow. There we go. So I click on blank solution and hit next. Okay. Again, let's give it a proper name. All right. So we'll maybe call it GPT dot school. We can call it GPT dot student, or let's call it university. University dot solution. Oh, that's it, right? So GPT dot university. Okay. Again, you can feel free to put in whatever destination folder. I have a source repos. You might have like a SQL in development. Again, this is up to you to choose the location. So blank solution, GPT.university, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and hit create. Okay, so once that's done, I'll see a new empty blank solution with no C# projects in there, all right? No projects attached to it, okay? So let me bring that up. It opened up here. Let me bring that over. Okay, so you'll see a blank solution, GPT.university, 0 projects, okay? So before we create projects, let's go ahead and install SQL Server in the next video. All right, welcome back. Now that we've installed Visual Studio 2022 and created a blank solution, we next need to download SQL Server. So I've provided the link for the SQL Server downloads in the resources. So if you head over to the link in the resources for SQL Server downloads, you'll see a link here. There's different versions. You can get Express or Developer. I'm using Developer. It's a free edition, 2022. So you can go ahead and click download. Again, the setup process is straightforward. You can just use the default settings and click next throughout until you're finished. Okay. Once you've installed SQL Server, you'll be able to open up. Well, the service will be installed and running, but you need to be able to query, right? Visualize your data, right? So there's another tool called SQL Server Management Studio, or SSMS. I provided again the link in the resources. You'll see a little link here, download SSMS. Okay, once you click that, it should start the download here. So you'll notice there's a version 19.1. You go ahead and click that and hit download. Okay, so once that's done, again, straightforward setup. You just hit next until SSMS is ready, and you'll be able to connect to SQL Server. So I'm going to open up my SQL Server. So this is the SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio. So when you first start it, you're going to be able to connect to a database engine, right? So meaning you're going to connect to a server. So by default, your connection might be localhost. In my case, it's my desktop, and then MS SQL Server 01. This is where the service is running under. Okay, and then I'm using Windows authentication. Again, feel free, if you're already familiar with SQL Server, you might have a custom login, you might have a SQL Server password, username, or you might have a different form of authentication. You might be coming through Active Directory and so on. So once you connect, we'll be now ready for GPT to help us create our entire full stack application. Again, if you have any trouble with the installs on both Visual Studio and SQL Server, feel free to message me in the chat or on the Udemy communication, and I'll be happy to respond. Thank you. All right, welcome back. Let's get started and build our full stack application now that we have our software installed. I'm going to log in and head over to chat.openai.com. So if you already created your account in step one, you should be able to talk and interact with not talk but interact with GPT. So I'm going to head over to a new chat. So I'm going to click on new chat. All right, so it should open a new chat up. And let's ask GPT to create a brand new database for us with all the schema and all the good stuff in the backend without us having to write any code. Again, you can feel free to fine tune your code, right? And GPT may not fully create the script for you. You might need to tweak it. So I'm going to show you how that works. So let's get started. I'm going to ask GPT, can you create a new SQL Server database named SchoolDB, all right, or we'll call it UniversityDB. Okay, UniversityDB. Okay, so GPT will come back with a response. It'll give you some description around what the command does. So this is a create database command. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it. So copy the code, head over to SQL Server. I'm going to click on new query here at the top. And I'll have a new query window that opens up here. Notice I'm connected to the master database. This is the default database that comes shipped with SQL Server. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Control V or paste the command we took from ChatGPT. So let me just zoom in here. So create database University DB. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and click on execute. Again, you can hit F5 as a shortcut. So I'll go ahead and execute that. Notice commands completed successfully. And GPT pretty much helped us to create a database. Again, you can do this yourself by right-clicking the databases and clicking on New Database. Okay, so notice we have a University DB. However, we have no database object set up yet, meaning no tables or stored procedures, views, and so on. So let's head over in the next section, ask GPT to create our first table, and then we'll follow that with some CRUD stored procedures. Okay, so now that we have a script to create a database, a new database for us, and we've executed that script, we now have the university DB. Let's go ahead and ask ChatGPT to create our first table. All right, so what we're going to ask is, let's just say, great. Now, can you create a table that stores student information? Okay, so let's ask it to, let's see what it comes up with. Can you create a table that stores student information? So I'm going to hit enter. All right, so certainly I can help you create your new student table. So notice it describes the table for you here. It first creates the script. It's going to be creating a table called students. Okay. And then it has some default columns here. It just came up with these. All right. So again, you can specify to ChatGPT what name of your table should be. What type of columns you want, the names of the columns, the data types, whether something's a primary key. All right. So notice it created a table with student ID as a primary key. So I'm going to massage the script a little bit. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to change it so it's just ID instead of student ID. And I'm going to make the primary key auto increment. Okay. I'll say thanks. Can you update the students script above so that the student ID column is just ID, okay, and it's auto increment. It's set to auto increment. Okay. All right. So let's see if it understands that and updates the script. Okay, there we go. Pretty nice, right? So create table students with ID as integer, identity, auto increment, primary key. Okay. It has first name, last name, date of birth, and email. Okay. So what we're going to do is also ask it, well, let's copy the code first. We'll go ahead and copy that. Okay, so I copied it. I'm going to head over to SQL Server. I'm going to go to a new query. So I'm going to actually right-click our new university database and say new query. Okay, I'm going to paste the query that GPT provided. Okay, notice it uses university DB. It didn't put a goes statement, so you got to massage it a little bit. That's fine. Okay, we're already in University DB here from the top drop down. So again, feel free to change that yourself. So that way you won't even need this. But I recommend using this so that way you don't accidentally create the table in the wrong database. Okay, so create a table students. I'm going to go ahead and execute the script here. All right, so it executed. Let's go ahead and right-click our tables and refresh. All right, now you'll see a new table called students here. So I can select, right-click and select top 1,000 rows. Of course, I have no data in there, but notice GPT created a proper table in SQL Server. Again, you can ask it to create a table in pretty much any database, Oracle, DB2, MongoDB, MySQL, and so on. So we have a students table. Let's ask GPT to actually give us some data. Okay, that way we don't have to even generate the data ourselves. Okay, you can use mock data from sites such as Mockaroo or create your own insert statements. Let's ask ChatGPT, however, to generate some random data for us. So I'll say, thank you. Now, can you please generate 10 random student records for the new table? Okay, let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so notice it's going to create insert statement into students with 10 random records, okay, which is pretty nice. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. All right, copy the code here. Head over to SQL Server. I'll go ahead and hit new window. You can hit Control N or you can hit new query up here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and paste that code. Notice it's going to insert into students first name, last name, date of birth, and email. So it generates some random data here, John Doe, and random birth date, and some random email. Okay, actually, it's nice. I actually connected the email. It took the first name dot last name at example.com. Okay, perfect. So it's going to hit go here, and I'm going to execute the script. 10 rows affected. That means 10 rows were inserted here. If I now head over to my select, top 1,000 here, we can say top 10 star, pretty much all the columns from the student table. I'm going to hit execute. Notice we have data now. So GPT was able to build our backend for us in terms of our new table, a new database, and generate some dummy data. Now we're going to move on to the stored procedures. Let's see if ChatGPT can handle the CRUD operations for us: create, read, update, and delete. Let's go ahead and do that in the next section. Okay, so now that we have a new students table and 10 random records in there, we're going to ask ChatGPT to now create stored procedures so that we can execute CRUD statements or CRUD operations. Again, CRUD stands for, C stands for create, R stands for read, okay, U stands for update, and D stands for delete. So meaning I want to be able to have stored procedures that allow me to create new students, right? Get students by ID or get all students, that's the read part. Update students, right, if I want to change the student information. And then also be able to delete a student from our record or system, okay? So let's go ahead and ask ChatGPT to perform the CRUD operation stored procedure creation. So I'm going to say, can you now create CRUD stored procedures, okay, against the students table. Okay, so let's see if it understands this statement here. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. Notice it understood it and immediately provided multiple stored procedures that allow me to perform CRUD statements. So let's see what it generated. Okay, so for the create part, it actually creates a new student. So it's called create student. Okay, for the read part, it gets the student. Okay, looks like it's getting the student by ID. In this case, get student, passes the ID. For update, it updates the student, so it passes various columns for the student and updates the table. And then finally, created a delete stored procedure that allows me to delete a student by ID. Now, one thing might be missing. We want to be able to get all the students. So let's see if it updates the above. Okay, can you also create a stored procedure that gets all the students? Okay, let's see what it generates here. All right, get all students, perfect. So select star from students. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start generating or creating these procs within SQL Server. So let's take the create one. I'm going to hit copy code here. Head over to SQL Server. Let's run a new query window and paste it, Control V. So notice we're in University DB, so I'm going to go ahead and create stored procedure create student here. So you can actually, let's go ahead and select all of them first, and then we'll run everything together. So I'll go ahead and copy the code for the get student. All right, and I'm going to paste that here. So let's put a go statement at the end of this and hit this, paste, and then hit go. Okay, and next I'm going to copy the update student. So copy code from GPT and paste it in here. Hit go. And then I'm going to next finally, well, we have a couple more, delete student. So copy that, head over to SQL Server, paste it, type in go. And then the last proc is a get all students. So we'll scroll down here, copy the code, and then go ahead and execute these scripts, right? So let's start with create student. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run this guy. So created student. Next, I will create the get student procedure. Perfect, done. Next, I'm going to run the create or update student procedure here. So go ahead and execute that. Next is a delete student stored procedure. So just highlight execute. Again, you can run this entire script at once. You can just click anywhere and just hit execute. So here, finally, I'm going to go ahead and execute the get all students creation. Perfect. All right, now if we head over to our programmability folder under University DB, right-click the store procedures, click on refresh. You should now see multiple stored procs. You can actually go ahead and test one. Let's see if it runs the get all students. I can right-click that, click on execute stored proc. Okay, click on OK. There's no input parameters. And notice that it executed get all students perfectly, right? And it returned back all the students in my students table. So GPT has generated CRUD statements for us to be able to create a student, get all students, get student by ID. You'll notice that there's an input parameter here for ID. Update a student, and delete a student. So now we're ready to build our server-side .NET 7 web API in order to interact with this backend University DB. All right, we'll start in the next section with creating our repository layer that interacts with SQL Server. All right, so now we have our full backend set up. Our University DB, we have one table called students. We have about 5 stored procedures that allow CRUD operations. Now it's time to move on to our Visual Studio. Okay, we created earlier an empty solution or blank solution called gpt.university. All right, so now we're gonna interact with ChatGPT and have it create a repository layer for us such that we can use Dapper ORM, Object Relational Mapper, to interact with the data, okay, via C#. So what I'm going to do is, if you head over to your solution in Visual Studio, I'm going to right-click the solution, add a new project here. And what we're going to do is create a class library. Okay, if you don't see it on the left side because you have recent templates, you can search class library up here. Okay, class library. If you type in class, it should come up the first one. Okay, I'm going to choose class library, hit next. Let's give it a name. All right, so again, let's follow a pattern. So I'm going to name it gpt.university.repository. Okay, so this is going to be our repository layer. Again, I'm following some sort of clean architecture pattern. Okay. Oh, I spelled that wrong. So gpt.university.repository. All right. So I'm gonna, again, it's gonna go within my university solution. So I'm gonna click on next. Again, you can choose a framework that you have installed. .NET 7 is the standard term support, and .NET 6 is long-term support. Okay, LTS. So again, up to you. You might be using some out of support versions. I highly recommend for this course use .NET 6 or greater. Okay, so I'm using .NET 7 here. I'm going to go ahead and click on create. All right, once the project's created, it should generate a new project for us called gpt.university.repository. I'm going to go ahead and right-click the class, the default class it comes shipped with, and hit delete here. Okay, we're going to create our own using GPT. All right, so now we have a solution that's no longer empty, has one project for our repository layer. Okay, so let's go ahead and head over back to GPT. All right, we're going to ask it to first, before we create our repository layer, let's see if we can create a simple C# application that actually allows us to interact using Dapper to our CRUD store procedures. Okay, so I'm going to say great. Now, can you create a .NET 7 project, okay, using C#, all right, and Dapper. Okay, so let's see how powerful GPT is in order to call the above stored procedures. Okay, stored procedures. Okay, so it's going to create a new .NET 7 project here. Notice it creates a console app, and I'll show you that once it's generated. I'll show you what it created. Again, it's pretty much creating the entire connection for us using Dapper to our backend. All right. It even creates interfaces and performs a dependency injection as well. Okay. So let's go back up to the top here. Again, you can follow this to create a new console app in order to test it. I just want to see what it generates and kind of take pieces of that and build our repository layer. So notice it's asking me to step 1, create a new .NET 7 project. It's probably going to be a console app. Notice here, this is a console app here. We're not going to create a console app. We're going to create a class library. You could have specified it, and we'll try to update GPT so it does that. Okay. It's saying install Dapper, Dapper package. Okay. So we can actually take some of this, right? So .NET add package, or I can head over to our solution here, right-click the repository project. I can manage NuGet packages. Okay, I'll go to browse here. Okay, and I'm going to search for Dapper. Okay, so Dapper, perfect. All right, so Dapper, I'll choose the latest stable version. Click on install. Go ahead and click apply. And Dapper should be installed now. If you head over to dependencies, I have packages, and Dapper's my only NuGet library that's installed here. Okay. So now we'll head back over to GPT, all right, and scroll down. It's asking us to create a connection string. All right, so I'm going to show you how to set that up here. So it's our university DB connection string, and then it's going to be our own server, university DB, and then we'll have integrated security true. So I'm going to copy this connection string. I can just take the connection string part of this JSON object. I'm going to head over to app settings here in my, well, this is again, GPT created a console app for us, okay? So we won't be able to use this yet. We're going to use it later on, all right? And then it has a student model it created for us, okay? Which has a student class that's going to map to, remember, our student table, which is, ID, first name, last name, date of birth, and email. So notice it generates even the right C# data types that maps to our our SQL Server table. Okay, so here's where the important pieces will come into our repo layer. Okay, this is using a DB connection factory here. Okay, it's going to create a repository for us. This is the important part. It's going to create a student repository for us, and then inject this student repository. Okay, so notice it creates a repository for us that has CRUD operations. It didn't generate all of them yet, but it only showed us the get all students async. All right, but we wanted to generate all the connections, right? All the connections for our CRUD operations. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and before we start implementing some of this, let's ask ChatGPT to kind of implement the rest of the CRUD operations for us. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and go to the bottom here and type in. Can you update the console app above so that I have examples, okay, for each of the CRUD procedures you created earlier? Okay, all right. So let's see if it generates or updates our student repository so that we have all the methods to interact with our CRUD stored procedures. Okay. Let's see. It's generating all the student repository, delete student async, and so on. So notice it build all the connections here on a console app. Again, you can run this console and test it, but we're going to build it into our interfaces and our repo layer. Okay. So notice it creates student async. It has a update student async, delete student, get all students. So it does now implement all of our CRUD stored procedures. Okay. All right. Now here's the part we're going to take from above and apply it to our repository project here. Okay. So I'm going to head back over to GPT. All right. I'm going to say, can you now create a new C# .NET 7, okay, class library. All right, so this is what we're going to use, and this is what we generated for our repo layer, that has a folder for interfaces, and then create an interface for the above CRUD repo layer. Okay, let's see what it comes up with. So we're pretty much asking it to create a new class library instead of a console app, and again, take the same student repository, but generate an interface for us. Okay, and I'll show you that once it generates it. Okay, so notice it actually created a new project. Now you can run this on the command line if you choose. Since we already created our class library project, I'm going to go ahead and take the start from step 2. So notice it's asking us to create a new folder for interfaces, right? So I'm going to head over to our university repo project. Right click on it, add new folder. This is going to be for interfaces. Okay, I'll head back over to GPT. I'm going to say right click that interface folder and create a new iStudent repository. Notice it generated all the interface methods I needed to interact with my backend. All right, so that's pretty nice. I don't have to write any code for that. So I'm going to right click interfaces, add new item here. Okay, I'm going to choose interface. I'm going to call it the iStudent repository. Okay, hit enter. And then I'm going to right click and paste the code from GPT. So I'm going to right click and paste. Notice it creates the interface, public interface, student repository. Okay. Now we're missing a student class, right? So it's missing. So we're going to go ahead and create the model as a separate project here in the next section. All right, so welcome back. We created, or ChatGPT created for us our iStudent repository. So it's an interface, right? We have an interface to connect to our stored procedures, our CRUD operations. Okay, so notice that earlier, let me scroll down or scroll back up. If you go up to the top, you'll see that it also created, if you remember, a student model. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take the student model, copy it. All right, public class student. Okay, go ahead and copy that. I'm going to head over to our university project, and remember, the student object is still missing. There's an error here, right? A compilation error. It's missing as a class. So I'm going to create the student class in a separate project. So I'm going to right-click the solution, add new project. Okay. Here I'm going to choose again class library. Hit next, and let's name this properly again. So gpt.university.models. Okay. So I'm going to hit enter. Again, choose .NET 7. And I'm going to delete the default class here. Delete. Again, you can delete it or rename it, up to you. I'm going to right-click university. Oh, I think I named this wrong here. I call it university. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just delete that for a second. Sorry. Delete that. Let's go ahead and open this in File Explorer. Again, I spelled it wrong, so let me go ahead and delete that folder here. Also, Shift Delete. Okay. Head over to this guy here. Back, and let's go ahead and create it with the right name. I could have renamed it, but again, I want to make sure the folders are properly spelled. So let's, again, class library, hit next. I'm going to say gpt.university. Let's make sure I spell that right. There we go. .models. Okay. And .NET 7 long-term support. Okay. So again, I'm going to delete this default class 1. Okay. So go ahead and delete that. I'm going to right-click University Models, add a new class here. So you can say class, and we'll name that student. Okay. Again, I took the code from GPT. I copied it. I'm going to paste it here. So Control V. Oh, and let's just take paste here. And we got our public class student. Perfect. All right. So if you save this, you go back over to the student repository. Notice if I hover over the error, the compilation error, it should give me some options here. Okay. Change student to this, generate new file. Okay. So I don't want to do that. However, I'm going to go ahead and rebuild here. It should fail on the build. And I want to see if the IntelliSense will allow me to reference University Models project within repository layer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hover over student. Now it does. Notice here, I can add a reference to gpt.university.models. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And there you go. It found student. Now, notice we have a nice repository layer with a clean, set of interface methods. Okay, they're all async, right? Task-based. And they reference our new models student project. All right, so we have our model library now. In the next section, we'll go ahead and ask GPT to implement this interface. All right, welcome back. So now we have our repository project with an interface that's linked to our university models for our student model. Okay, now we need to ask GPT to implement this interface using Dapper to connect to SQL Server. All right, so let's go ahead and head over to GPT. Okay, so I'm going to scroll all the way down here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and ask it in the same project. Okay, so remember it created our repository project class library for us. So we're going to ask it in the same project, can you implement the above uh, I student repository interface. Uh, okay, interface called student repository. Okay, and not to mention using Dapper. So in the same project, we're asking GPT, can you implement the above iStudent repository interface called student repository using Dapper? So let's go ahead and hit enter. All right. So notice it's generating a student repository class. I'll show you that in a second. And let's let it generate. All right. So it's, remember, defining the implementation for all of our stored procedures, but using Dapper, which is the nice part. Notice it's using Dapper. So let's go ahead and copy it, then I'll explain the code, right? So we'll copy this code. Again, it's giving instructions. Notice here it says create a new student repository class, right, in our project. So I'm going to copy this code, head over to our GPT University repository project. I'm going to go ahead and right click. We're not going to put an interface, we're going to put it outside of interfaces. So right click the project, add class, and I'm going to type in student repository. Okay, repository. All right, and all I have to do is paste that class, that implementation of our interfaces. All right, so I'm going to Control V that guy. All right, now if I head over to the top, let's first go ahead and close this so you guys can read it here. I'm going to zoom in. Notice it created a new class called student repository. Perfect. It implements my interface, iStudent repository. Nice. It actually uses Dapper here, which is nice. Okay. Notice IDB connection, right? It makes a Dapper connection. And look at this. It has, using Dapper, all of our CRUD operations in our repository layer, which is beautiful. I didn't have to write all this myself. Okay. Get all students, right? Notice it's calling stored procedure. Perfect, right? Get student async. This is pretty much like get a student by ID. Again, it's using all stored procedures, the ones we created earlier. Okay, create student async. However, notice here for create student async, it's using inline SQL. So we're going to have it update that to use our stored procedure. Okay, same with update student, right? It's using inline SQL, which is, it could be dangerous. I highly suggest using stored procedures. So there's no injection, SQL injection, and so on. And that way you can modify the stored procedure without having to redeploy the code. Okay, and then delete student. So we need to ask GPT, hey, it did a good job for us, right? Generated the code. It's using stored procs for the get students, right? But the rest of them, it's using inline. So let's have it update the methods here so it uses the stored procs. Okay, we'll go ahead and do that next. All right, so let's head over to GPT and let's have it update the above code. So we're going to say, great, but can you update? Can you update it so that it uses the stored procedures you created earlier instead of inline SQL? Okay, so we don't want to use inline SQL. We want GPT to regenerate our repository for us, but use stored procedures for every CRUD operation. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter here. Okay, so notice it's updating the student repository, right? So I'll wait for it to generate and make sure it uses our stored procedures from earlier. Okay, so it is generating. All right, there we go. It's done, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit copy again, copy code. I'll head over to GPT University again, overwrite the whole entire class. All right, so go ahead and paste. All right, so now again, it looks good. I'm going to zoom out a bit. Notice it's using stored procedure for get students, create students. Nice. So create students calling a stored proc. So pretty nice update from GPT. It recognized what we needed in order to solve our problem here. So stored procedure for delete student, update student, create student. Now we're in good shape, right? So I'm going to go ahead and build. Let's try to rebuild this solution and make sure there's no problems. All right, no problems. So rebuild all succeeded. Very nice. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and implement the IDB connection. Okay, so We don't have that yet. We could ask GPT. I think it already generated for us. We'll take a look. Uh, let's go ahead and take a look from prior console app, right, that it created. Notice it created a console app for us. Let's go back up here. So remember, it created a .NET console app. So I'm going to scroll down here. And okay, so it created a DB connection factory. All right, this is we're going to need this in order to make that connection happen through Dapper. So I'm going to copy this code here. Public class DB connection factory. I'm going to copy this so I can actually copy code. All right, head over to our repository project. Right click, add class. Okay, and we're going to call this IDB. I think it was called IDB connection factory. Or sorry, DB connection factory. Okay, so I'm going to head over to the class and say DB connection factory. Okay, and I'm going to paste the code that GPT generated. All right, so notice it created. Oh, actually, I was supposed to paste the entire thing. So I'm going to hit Control A, sorry, and paste. There we go. Okay, we're missing iConfiguration here. So I can install this package, Microsoft Extensions Configuration Abstractions, all right, and find and install the latest version. Okay, notice behind the scenes, it's going to use the NuGet library to make that, to create the package for us, the dependency. One more error, we're seeing a problem with SQL connection, okay. So I think that's using system.data.sql client, all right. Let me build this and rebuild it one more time and see if it allows me to use IntelliSense. Otherwise, we'll add that package from the NuGet. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and, it's not letting me add it from here. So let's go ahead and say dependencies, manage NuGet packages, and we're going to say system.data, okay, .sql client. There we go. All right, I'm going to install the latest version here. Click on apply, and I accept. Okay, so I'll go ahead and close NuGet package manager. Now it reference system.data SQL client, and then we have no more errors, right? So let's actually try to rebuild this guy. So rebuild, all right, and should have a rebuild 2 succeeded. Perfect. All right, so we're in good shape. We have our repo layer. Notice our repo layer is pretty much done. We don't have to write any code ourselves. All this business logic here. Again, you can fine tune it and tweak it as needed, but this is a full connection using Dapper to SQL Server. Okay. All right. Oh, oops! I think I pasted this multiple times here. Let's just fix this guy. Sorry about that. So namespace university data. Oh, we need to make sure it's the correct namespace here. So I'm going to remove this. Okay. We won't need this guy here. I think I just pasted too many times here. So namespace GPT University repository. Let's go ahead and right click and say remove and sort usings. There we go. And I think we have an extra set of brackets here. So let's just go ahead and clean this up. So I can actually edit. Let's go to advanced format document. Okay, let's see if it does. There we go. Clean that up for us. I'm going to go ahead and rebuild this solution. All right, rebuild all succeeded. Okay, so we have our namespace here. We have our student repository. Again, you can put this outside. It's up to you. You can actually Control X this guy. Move this outside above namespace. That's fine. Control V. Okay, so we should be in good shape still. All right, so we have a repository layer. Let's move on to the next layer, which is our service layer. All right, welcome back. So we have completed our backend database, our stored procedures, our repository layer that connects to those stored procedures for our CRUD operations. Let's go ahead and build our next layer, which is going to be our service layer. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and ask GPT, okay, now can you create a new .NET 7 class library, okay, called student service, all right, so student service, that injects, okay, we're going to use dependency injection, right? Injects the iStudent repository, okay? iStudent repository. All right, so let's see if if GPT allows us to create a new .NET 7 class library. Perfect, all right. You can again use a command line. I'm going to go ahead and use the project here. So I'm going to call it right-click solution, add new project, just like we did for the repo, class library. I'm going to name this gpt.university, okay, .service. All right. Okay, this is going to be a service layer. So hit next and use the .NET 7 framework. All right, so we have our gpt.university.service layer, repository layer, and service layer. I'm going to go ahead and delete the default class 1. Okay. All right, let's head over to GPT here. Notice it built our student service. All right, very nice. It built our student service. So notice it's a public class student service. So I can copy this guy. You can actually copy the entire code. So copy code. We'll head back over to our university service, add class here, and we'll call that the student service. Okay, and all I have to do is paste GPT's code. All right, so here's student service. Notice it hasn't implemented iStudent service, so we're going to have to ask GPT to create an interface for us for iStudent service, right? However, iStudent repository, notice it nicely injected using the constructor injection the student repository. Now let's go ahead and add a reference to the university repository project. Okay. We'll also need a reference to the student, the models project. Okay. Perfect. Oh, so it only implemented one method for us. Okay. So it only implemented one method for us. All right. So we want to make sure that first of all, it extends the iStudent service. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So very nice. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and ask GPT, can you update the student service project so that the student service class, okay, extends a iStudent service interface. Okay, so kind of similar to what we had in the repository layer. Again, this is to keep it clean, separated. All right. So we have iStudent service. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and copy the iStudent service copy code. Again, it only generated one method. So let's ask it to update the interface here for the iStudent service and implement the rest of the methods here. Can you please update the iStudent service interface for the rest of the CRUD or service methods? Okay, so let's see if it updates it. There we go. All right, so I think it has our 5 CRUD methods. Perfect. So I can go ahead and copy this interface, iStudent service, head over to our service layer. Again, we'll add a new folder called interfaces. Interfaces, okay. And we will add a new item. And we're going to choose interface. And this is going to be our iStudent service. Okay, our iStudent service. I'm going to go ahead and paste the entire code. All right. Very nice. I can delete this line from here. So it has all of our CRUD operations, iStudent service. And if I head over to student service, notice I can pretty much implement the iStudent service here. Okay, very nice. Now it's missing. Notice it hasn't implemented some of these methods. Let's go ahead and ask ChatGPT. Did it generate the other methods? No, right? So we need to ask ChatGPT to update the student service. Can you please update the student service so it implements all the methods in the iStudent service interface? Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and see what it does. Perfect. It still has a repo in there. Oh, beautiful. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this code here. We can actually take all the code, right? Head over to our student service. Control A, Control V. Beautiful. All right. So we have our student service. Notice it. Be careful on the namespace. I'll go ahead and clean that up in a second because we were copying and pasting from GPT, it's probably better to copy just the class part of it. It's fine. We'll update the namespaces in a second here. But notice the student service now implements iStudentService. It injects the student repository, and it implemented all of the CRUD operations: get all students, get students async, create, update, and delete. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete this last commented line here. All right, beautiful. All right, let's make sure. Let's go back to our repository and just do a little cleanup, making sure our namespaces are correct. So notice here it's gpt.university.repository.interfaces. Okay, that's fine. DB connection factory. There's no namespace here, but I'm going to make sure there's a namespace here called namespace. Okay, and this is going to be gpt.university.repository. Perfect. And then I'm going to make sure to add the brackets here. Okay. So just be careful when you're copying and pasting from GPT. All right. To maybe next time, generate the class yourself and then copy and paste just a class. All right. So that way you get the exact namespace you need. All right. This one is correct. The student repository we created ourselves. That one's good. iStudentService, public interface, iStudentService. This should also be in the namespace. Notice just like iStudent repository, we had a namespace here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a namespace to iStudentService here. So we're going to say namespace, oops, Control Z, oops, Control Z, oops, sorry about that. Okay, so namespace, this is going to be gpt.university.service, right? And we're going to go ahead and put an open close bracket. Okay, there we go. All right, so Control S. And the same thing, let's do it for, actually, this should be .interfaces, right? So interfaces, perfect, right? So I'm going to go ahead and copy this entire namespace part, Control C, making sure that our student service has the correct namespace, okay? So I can paste it over here, university.service, beautiful. All right, so you need to update this, because we changed the namespace, I can update the references here. So I'm going to right click and remove sort using, so it only has the valid using statements. Okay. All right. So we have our student service. It implements iStudentService. It dependency injects repository. Now we're in business, right? So now we can actually use this to build our API using ChatGPT. Okay. Let's do it. Go ahead and do that in the next section. All right. Welcome back. So in the next section, we'll go ahead and create our API project using GPT, and then we'll be able to build a API, right, that implements all the CRUD operations from our student service and dependency injection with repository and service layers. All right, so let's head back over to GPT. Okay, I'm going to scroll back down here. So far GPT's built our repository layer, our backend, our service layer. Now let's end with our API layer. Okay, so I'm going to ask GPT now, can you create a new .NET 7 API, okay, that injects the iStudent service, all right? So above, okay, in the controller. All right, perfect. So let's see what it generates here. So again, it's going to take you step by step. It's going to have you, use either the command line or Visual Studio to create a new project. And again, you're going to choose a name, right? So we'll go ahead and create our API project, all right? So let's head back over to our GPT University. I'm going to right-click the solution, add new project. This time, we're going to choose ASP Core Web API. Again, you could type in API here, okay? You should have some options here for ASP.NET Core Web API. So I'm going to hit next. All right, we're going to go ahead and name this gpt.university.api. All right, click next. And again, a couple options here. We're going to use .NET 7, no authentication. All right, we'll configure for HTTPS, okay, and enable Open API support. So we'll have like Swagger definitions and so on for our API. So I'll go ahead and click create here. Okay, so again, you can remove the configuration for secure HTTP if you don't have any certificates, or you want to just use development certificate. That's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. Notice I just created a empty GPT University API. All right, it comes shipped with a default controller here. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this weather forecast because this is a default model. I'm going to delete that. Okay. Should have program here. Notice in our program CS, this is all the pipeline for the .NET 7. It adds controllers, adds Swagger, has this container here, right? Builder.build, and then uses HTTPS, right? Redirection, and runs our container, all right? Our builder. Okay, so notice this is a weather forecast controller, but however, if I go back to GPT, it created a students controller. All right, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and rename, GPT is saying rename this. All right, so rename the weather forecast to the students controller. Students controller. Okay, students controller. And I'm going to say yes to that. When you open up the controller, notice it has it had the default weather, some weather related information. This is just like a default class. So I'm going to go ahead and delete information there. Okay, students controller, perfect. Rename that. We don't need get weather forecast. So I'm going to delete that default method. Okay, so I created our controller. Notice now we're going to copy, right? Copy the code here. So I'm going to copy this class, so API students, the students controller class. All right. However, it didn't implement all the CRUD endpoints. So let's ask GPT, can you please implement the rest of the CRUD API endpoints? Okay. So let's have it generate the rest of the CRUD API endpoints. Okay. And then we'll move on to dependency injection, and we should have pretty much an API up and running. So I'll go ahead and copy this class now. So we'll take it from here, public class students controller. So we'll copy all the API methods, controller methods. Okay, so I'll Control C that. Head back over to our university. I'm going to paste over this students controller class. Notice it's missing some references. Again, GPT did inform us earlier. Notice here, if you scroll back up, it did inform us to add references right here. So when it created our .NET 7 Web API project, it asked us to add references to the university repo, right? The data. Again, it's assuming we had a data layer, but it got it correct on the student service. So let's go ahead and head over to the API project, right-click dependencies. Let's add project references to our repository layer and our service layer. Okay. So go ahead and hit OK. Okay. So notice here, I could hover over iStudent service and add the using statement for using interfaces. Okay. Do I have any other issue? Okay, student. So we need to implement our models, right? Remember, this was in our GPT University models. We're adding a reference for the student model. Okay, no other errors, right? And notice it implemented. So let's go through this. It created a students controller for us, an API, right? It injected the iStudent service. That's what we asked it to inject. Okay. It has a method for get all students. Notice it calls the student service get all students, returns OK, which is a status code, HTTP status code of 200. Okay, notice if you hover over OK, it's a 200 response, and it returns back the students. Very nice. It also has the CRUD operation for getting a student by ID. So we pass in an ID to the API. We'll call the student service, get the ID. If the ID is null, if there's no ID, student with that ID that exists, it'll throw a return a 404, which is a not found HTTP status code. Otherwise, it'll return that specific student back. Okay. Notice GPT also built in try-catch blocks, right? And it returns the error code 500 if there's any exception. Very nice. So we don't have to code any of this. GPT generated it for us. We just have to ask it the appropriate questions. Okay. So create student. It takes a student object as input. It calls the student service, creates the student. Remember, it calls our repo. It calls our stored procedure, and then returns back created at action, okay, which is a 201, and it returns this new student back with the new ID. Okay. Next, updates the student. Again, you can massage all this to your liking. All right. Inject even other services. In this case, very simple CRUD full stack application. All right. So update student takes the student ID and updates the student, gets the existing student, and then it calls the update student async. Perfect. All right. Delete student. It gets the student if it exists based on ID. If it finds it, it calls delete. If it's deleted, then it returns no content. Otherwise, it failed to delete student. Wow. See, it also built in, GPT also built in all the messages for us, right? So I'm going to go ahead and rebuild the solution here. All right. Rebuild all succeeded. Perfect. All right, let's move on to the next section. We still have some app settings and dependency injection to set up in the program class. So I'll show you that next. All right, welcome back. So we now have a full API, a web API in .NET 7 using GPT that dependency injected our student service. It set up our API controllers. Now we got to take care of a little bit of dependency injection in the configured services. All right, so again, we might have to massage a little bit, but for the most part, it does create the proper dependency injection. So we need to head over and take the iStudent service and make sure we inject that. So I'll copy this from GPT. GPT generated this earlier as part of our API. So I'll head over. Let's collapse these projects here. I'll head over to our API. Go to Program CS. And here, notice I'm going to add some dependency injection. All right, so I'm going to paste the code that GPT provided. Now, notice GPT it's using the configure services. We don't have that method here, but I'm going to use builder.services, right? So I'm going to actually type in builder.services as part of .NET 7 pipeline and add scoped iStudent service student service. Okay. Now I'm going to do that. Go ahead and do the same thing for repository, or I can even ask ChatGPT to also add the dependency injection for the student repository. So let's go ahead and ask it that. So we'll say, can you also register? Okay, we're going to register the iStudent repository. Okay, because it didn't do it the first time. It only did the student service. Okay, so notice here. Yeah, so it added scope for iStudent repository. I can take this line, copy it. Okay, Control C. Head over to the program CS, and we'll put that right before student repository. Again, I'm going to change the services to builder.services. Okay, builder.services. Save that. Perfect. All right, now we have the student repository and iStudent repository. Okay. Okay, so one more thing we need to do is add our injection for the DB connection, the IDB connection. So let's ask ChatGPT if it can add that for us in the API. Could you also set up the app settings for the connection to the database to the, let's say, the university DB, as well as inject the DB connection factory in the API startup. Okay, let's see if it helps us with that. So GPT is saying, all right, so app settings, we need to set up, remember, our university DB connection string. Okay, and then we need to go ahead and add connection to our SQL connection. All right, so perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and first set up our connection string. So we'll go ahead and copy this connection string part. And again, we can fine tune and adjust to our needs. All right, so if you head over to app settings in the API project, I can put a comma after allowed hosts and paste the connection strings, right? So university DB, this is, again, custom to your server. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to use not our username password, but in this case, integrated security security equals true. Okay, and let me get the name of my server here. Again, you might be localhost. It might be the name of your desktop, right? So again, make sure that's configured properly. So here's my server. I'm going to go ahead and paste that. University DB, that's correct. All right, so that's Control S. That's good. One more thing is to set up to wrap up the dependency injection, right? So if you head back down to ChatGPT, you'll notice it adds services.addScope IDB connection. Okay, so I'm going to copy this guy, copy, and then head over to my program CS. And right before the student repository injection, I'm going to paste the code GPT provided. Okay, make sure to change the services to builder.services. Okay, and we're get connection string. Yes, that's correct. University DB. Okay. Looks good. New SQL connection. Now we have IDB connection as part of the dependency pipeline. All right. So I'm going to save this. Let's go ahead and run a rebuild. Okay. Let's go ahead and rebuild the solution. And looks like everything rebuilt. All right. I'll see you in the next section. All right. Welcome back. So up to this point, we have GPT generated for us a full stack API, right? A backend database, our repository layer that depends on Dapper ORM. It uses it created for us a service layer that dependency injects the repository layer, right? It understood that part. It created an API for us with a students controller performing all the CRUD operations. It helped us set up our app settings connection string to University DB, and then it helped us with a dependency injection. All right. Now we need to go ahead and let's see if GPT can generate for us an entire Postman collection to test our API. Okay. So before we do that, make sure to just go ahead and run your API here, right? So go ahead and right-click the API project, set as a startup project, okay? And just hit the play button. It's going to run the application in debug mode. And in a second, you'll see the browser pop up. And here's the swagger. Notice, beautiful. GPT generated for us an entire API, right, with CRUD operations on, get all students, get student by ID, post a new student, update a student, and delete a student. So we can go ahead and give it a shot. Let's try to see if it gets all the students back from our database. I'm going to click on try it out and click on execute. And it returned back a 200, beautiful. And look at this, we got a nice JSON set of all the 10 students in our database. Okay. You can go ahead and test all the rest of the CRUD endpoints. All right. I'm going to actually have GPT generate for us in Postman a collection to test this against. All right. So what you're going to do is, if you don't already have Postman, please go ahead and install Postman. All right. You can download it from the link I'll provide in the resources. All right. Let's, in the meantime, head over to GPT. Okay. We're going to ask GPT, can you generate now a Postman collection that allows me to test the above API. Okay, above API. Okay, so it's going to provide the entire JSON collection for us. Okay, save them as JSON file. All right, so let's go up and see what it generated. So I can provide you a Postman collection that includes requests to the CRUD operations of your API. However, I'll need to provide a simplified collection that you can customize. Okay, so notice here it tells me how to execute all the CRUD operations for us and how to set up the requests. Now, I want it so that it automatically generates that for me. Okay, instead of me having to do all this. All right, and put it in a JSON file myself. Okay, so let's see if it does that for me. Can you generate the above collection as a JSON file for me so that I can import into Postman? Okay, let's see if it generates the file. Ah, beautiful. So notice it's generating the entire Postman collection for me. Okay, again, you can do this one at a time with one request method at a time, but it's generating the entire Postman collection. All right, so let's see. Once it's done, Oh, network error. All right, let's regenerate. Sometimes you might get that error here. It could be traffic and so on. So I'm going to hit regenerate, create student. Okay, update student by ID. Very nice. Student by ID, localhost. Perfect. You can download the JSON file. So I'm going to copy this JSON file. All right, so watch this. I'm going to hit copy code. I'm going to head over to Postman. Okay. Okay, so here's Postman. All right. I'm going to import. Okay, I'm going to click on import, and I'm going to say raw text. I'm going to paste what GPT generated. Okay. These are all. This is the entire set of CRUD operations that GPT is generating. Okay, so I'm going to hit continue, and I'm going to call this a university API. Click on import. Okay. Notice it created 5 requests for me. Okay. Get all students. Okay. Get student by ID. Create student. Update student by ID, and delete student. This is beautiful. GPT generated the entire Postman collection for me. Okay. Now the port number might be different. So remember, we're going to go in. When we launched our API, remember it was running under. If I go back over to our Swagger, it's running under port 7233. All right. So if you head over to Postman, make sure this is port 7233, and it's HTTPS. Okay. So if I update this first collection, get all students, and hit send, beautiful. I get all my data back, right, from Postman, the 10 students. Okay. So you can actually copy this URL, all right, the HTTPS 7233, Control C it, update all of your endpoints that GPT generated in Postman to the right port and HTTPS, okay, protocol. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that over, and finally delete student, and generate that. All right. We'll go ahead in the next video test all of these endpoints again to make sure that everything's working properly. If not, we'll go ahead and fix it or adjust. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and test all of our CRUD API endpoints using Postman that GPT generated. All right, so I'm going to first test get all students, which we ran earlier. So hit send. Notice we get all the students, 10 students back from our database. Very nice. All right. Let's pick one random ID. Let's say Michael Johnson is ID 3. I'm going to head over to the get student by ID request. Notice that GPT generated a collection for me, or a request for me, that allows me to pass in a parameter here called ID. Okay, so I can actually paste over this, and or I can even generate the key here, param. So I can even put a colon here and head over to param, query params, right, and punch in the ID. So let's just put in the ID here, 3. Oh, perfect. All right, so this is calling the get student by ID. Notice it only brought back one student, which is Michael Johnson, ID 3. Beautiful. All right, I'm going to try to create a new student. Okay, so notice GPT generate a create student post endpoint for me, or post request, with a body in there, right? So with raw JSON, okay, raw JSON, I can create a new student. Let's create my name in there, Manish, and we'll put in Narayan here. Okay, my date of birth, let's put in 1980, okay, and we'll put 1980. We'll just put 0101 for now, okay. And John Doe, nope. Let's change that to Manish.Narayan. Okay, again, feel free to play around with this. Okay, so I'm going to try to see if it can create a new student. Student created. Look at the response, HTTP response code 201, and it returned back the student for me. All right, so if I click on get all students again, I should see my name in there. Yes, ID 11. Okay, ID 11. All right, so create a student with ID 11, and let's go ahead and try to update student ID 11, which is mine, right? So we'll go ahead and try to update student ID 11, okay? And in the body, I'm going to just say updated first name. We'll just call it updated Manish, and just to test it, right? And updated Narayan, okay? And then we'll just leave the default numbers here. So I'll go ahead and hit send. All right, status 200, okay, very nice. It updated my name, first name and last name. actually my date of birth and email as well, right? So if I click on get all students, I should see towards the end here, student ID 11. Oh, perfect. Updated my name. Very nice. So ID 11, I can even call get student by ID. Change that to 11, hit enter. I get my latest file, right? Delete student by ID. Let's see if it deletes my student ID. 11, send. 204, no content, right? So it means that if I hit get all students, it hopefully deleted, yep, it deleted student ID 11. So it seems like all of our CRUD operations are working beautifully. And with the help of GPT, we didn't have to write much code. It generated the entire stack for us from API to service to repository to our database backend. And it's fully tested using Postman. Beautiful. I'll see you in the next video.